Edo Comic Club, March 2025, Captain America Sam Wilson. The 2015 series, issues 1 to 6 by Nick Spencer. He, him pronouns. Content/trigger warnings include mentions and sometimes discussion of racism and racial discrimination, Nazism, sexism, misogyny, sexual assault and battery, death, STDs and AIDS, PTSD, and untreated mental health issues. I'm also going to acknowledge that I am not a person of colour, so while I attempt my best to broach the topic of race in relation to Sam Wilson and the mantle of Captain America with the respect and depth of thought that it deserves, I would also encourage reading and hearing the voices of people of colour and taking their worldviews on Sam Wilson being Captain America into consideration as well. Daniel Acuna and Mike Choi were the artists on the first 3 issues, Paul Renaud and Kamula Fajardo on issues 4 and 5 did the art, and Joe Bennett, Belladino Bravo, and Romulo Fajardo did the art on issue 6. Nick Spencer. Because of how many characters we have to cover tonight, the discussion of the creative team is going to be super brief. For a full bio on Nick Spencer, see the YouTube upload for the Amazing Spider-Man Hunted Comic Club. Regarding Nick Spencer, basically he went from the Sam Wilson Captain America and Captain America Steve Rogers into Secret Empire, then wrote Amazing Spider-Man and for Archie Comics, then left both and joined the Substack initiative, 3 Worlds, 3 Moons, a new comics universe that he's now co-creating with Mike Del Mondo, Jonathan Hickman, and Mike Huddleston, ceasing all outside work. While none of this saw the light of day in 2023 or 2024, the first 3 Worlds, 3 Moons comic with his name attached, called Arrivals, will release sometime in 2025, co-written by Spencer and Jonathan Hickman. If you're curious what 3 Worlds, 3 Moons is, you can go to 3w3m.substack.com, and the story called The Valors is available to read for free in full, as are the first 4 chapters of the Story Academy. The history of Captain America. Steve Rogers' Captain America predates Marvel Comics, originally published in 1940 by their corporate predecessor Timely Comics, designed to take advantage of the growing popularity of superhero comics and serve as anti-Nazi propaganda. The cover of the first issue of Captain America saw Captain America punch Hitler in the face. Draped in the American flag, carrying an indestructible shield made of some mix of adamantium and vibranium, depending on the point in comic history, injected with a super soldier serum to make Steve the peak of human physical fitness and endurance, Captain America seemed undefeatable. But alas, superhero comics declined in popularity following the end of the war, and Captain America comics were discontinued in 1950. After a short-lived attempted revival teaming him up with Jim Hammond, the original Human Torch with 0 creative ties, to the Fantastic Four, Steve Rogers and Captain America were retired until 1963. An imposter Captain America was revealed to appear in Strange Tales issue 114, defeated by the Fantastic Four's Human Torch, as a test to gauge interest in the potential return of the real Captain America. Positive responses from readers saw the character reintroduced in 1964's The Avengers issue 4, retroactively establishing the Hull frozen in the Atlantic Ocean in the final days of World War II and left in suspended animation for decades story arc. While a solo Captain America book recommenced, Marvel Comics took a position of neutrality on the Vietnam War, and thus Captain America was kept away from the issue in the comics. Captain America stories in the 1970s increasingly focused on domestic American political issues, such as poverty, racism, pollution, and political corruption, significantly shaped by writer Steve Englehart and artist Sal Buscema. For time will skirt through decades of comic history, but Captain America has a number of sidekicks during that time. Some of the most memorable will be talked about in the Captain America Sam Wilson Comic Club in March, and has a number of recurring villains established, some of which we'll also talk about during that comic club, and is briefly involved in many team rosters for the Avengers in addition to his solo title. He also goes through a brief period of the American government forcing him to give his shield and title to the patriotic villain John Walker, who was created to better define what Captain America the concept is by seeing someone groping, trying to live up to the concept of Captain America, trying to grasp all the facets of the concept and ultimately failing. During that time, Steve Rogers wore a simplified black, red, and white version of the Captain America suit and shield, going by the codename The Captain, before being returned to the Captain America mantle by a US committee, and John Walker, stripped of the Captain America title, took Steve's old hand-me-down black, red, and white The Captain suit and became US Agent instead. There was a brief period in 2007 when Steve was incorrectly presumed dead that Bucky stole his shield and costume and took on the mantle to keep Steve's shield from falling into the hands of some government stooge that would sully the reputation Steve built, like Johnny Walker nearly had. Steve ultimately turned up alive and took up the Captain America mantle again. Years later, Steve Rogers was stripped of his super soldier serum and quickly accelerated to look and feel his natural age, which, considering he was already an adult when World War I started, makes Steve quite old. Weakened by age rather than die wielding the shield, Steve chose one of his closest and most trusted allies to take up his shield, Now, Sam Wilson, formerly the Avenger known as the Falcon, carries on the fight for liberty and justice as the all-new, all-different Captain America, and this time without any super soldier serum to assist him. The history of Sam Wilson. As Captain America's 1970s comics focused on domestic political issues, Captain America issue 117 introduced Samuel Thomas Wilson, aka the Falcon, as the first African-American superhero in mainstream comics, and who would become Captain America's partner. The series title on the cover was changed to Captain America and the Falcon beginning February 1971 and continued under this name for the next 7.5 years. Black Panther still holds the honorific of being Marvel's first black superhero. Luke Cage, aka Power Man, would be introduced in 1972, Blade in 1973, and Aurora Monroe, aka Storm, in 1975, and black non-superhero characters had appeared in supporting capacities in other comics, like Joe and Randy Robertson in the Amazing Spider-Man comics, and Gabe Jones from the American military group the Howling Commandos. Bill Foster, as played in the MCU by Lawrence Fishburne, was introduced into comics in 1966 as Hank Pym's lab assistant, but doesn't become the superhero Black Goliath, later retconned in 2006 to Goliath, until 1975. Sam Wilson was introduced as a former resident in New York City's Harlem neighborhood who had adopted a wild falcon he trained and named Redwing. When a group of men on an island in the tropics wanted a hunting falcon, Sam answered the ad. When Sam discovered the self-dubbed exiles were former Nazis in league with the supervillain the Red Skull, Sam escaped but remained on the island to organize the natives to confront the exiles who had turned them into servants. At the urge of Steve Rogers, whom he later learned was Captain America, Wilson took on the costumed identity of the Falcon and underwent training with Steve Rogers to better inspire the villagers and lead the fight. The original Falcon costume was primarily green with golden orange fringes and did not have any wings. In Captain America issue 170, a Steve Rogers request, the T'Challa Black Panther designed the iconic set of wings Sam Wilson uses. The wings featured detachable, jet-powered glider wings made of lightweight titanium, ribbing, and mylar. The wings were covered with wafer-thin, solar-powered receptors that convert sunlight into electricity for power, miniature high-speed electric turbine jets in his uniform and even his boots. This addition completed the red and white Falcon costume, which would be used for most of Sam's Falcon appearances going forward, with minor design tweaks, though I'll always have a soft spot for the unnecessary 70s plunging V-neck version. In 1975, writer Steve Englehart retconned aspects of the Falcon's past. Originally depicted as a former social worker motivated by desires to better the lives of inner-city youth, the Falcon was revealed as a mob-connected thug codenamed Snap, whose memories were altered by the reality warp and cosmic cube, masterminded by the Red Skull, an iconic recurring Captain America villain. For a number of reasons, this Sam as a criminal retcon was reinforcing negative racial connotations and stereotypes. This Snap persona was retconned in the 2014 all-new Captain America comic to have been entirely constructed of the Red Skull to discredit Sam via racism, and Sam Wilson had never been a criminal at all, indeed always a social community worker. The Falcon is a symbol of freedom and justice in Harlem. Navigating periods of strained race relations in the city proves to be a more enduring legacy for Sam Wilson. Sam's parents were Paul Wilson, a prominent minister, and Darlene Wilson. Wilson had a happy childhood and a natural affinity for birds, training pigeons, and had the largest pigeon coop in Harlem. Encounters with racism in his teens left Sam feeling jaded. When he is 16, Sam refuses to join the church, believing his deeply religious parents to be ignorant for their faith. To his surprise, rather than put up a fight, his parents provide Sam with books on different religions and comparative theology. Sam's father is killed trying to break up a neighborhood fight, and 2 years later his mother is shot and killed by a mugger 1 block from their apartment. The tragic death of his parents does not stop Sam from being a respected community volunteer and social worker, as well as aiding raising his brother and sister. In 1978, the Falcon briefly joined the superhero team The Defenders for issues 62 through 64, and was a member of the Avengers from 1979 for issues 183 through 194, and the 1998 The Avengers Volume 3, in which contact with the Cosmic Cube mentally bonded Sam with Redwing, and the 2012 Marvel Now Avengers team. The Falcon costume has had multiple updates over the years, from both Stark employees and Wakandan tech improvements, eventually replacing Falcon's wings with hard, light constructs, and incorporating self-repairing vibranium microweaves into his main costume to make Sam resistant to small arms weapons fire. The wings have been used to deflect projectiles, and feathers have been flung as slicing projectiles similar to the mutant Archangel's wings. On July 16, 2014, Marvel Comics announced that Sam Wilson would relinquish the mantle of Falcon and would become the new Captain America, succeeding Steve Rogers in the role. This was a move that created a lot of discourse around the character of Sam Wilson. Some felt Sam's legacy as Falcon was a strong enough identity on its own. He didn't need Steve's hand-me-downs. Some people's reasoning for Sam not being Cap was tinged or overtly racist, and some people loved the prospect of Sam being trusted by his friend with one of the biggest responsibilities a superhero can have, embodying all that Sam as Captain America stands for, and honor, but certainly a complicated one given America's treatment of black people, both in the past and the present. Sam's first outing as Captain America, as written by Rick Remender in All New Captain America, saw Sam taking on Hydra with assistance from Misty Knight. It's bizarre how widely the first miniseries veered around the subject of race, identity, and any politics stronger than super Nazis are bad, given how much their front-loaded context for both this Nick Spencer comic run and the Sam Wilson content in the MCU as portrayed by Anthony Mackie. The strategy was probably to wow the many naysayers with action before making readers face the topic of social justice through the lens of being black in modern America. Sam Wilson in the comics is trained in combat and martial arts by Steve Rogers, whereas in the MCU, Sam is trained in combat through the United States Air Force. Since that all-new Captain America run, Sam Wilson has alternated between the Captain America and Falcon identities, often coexisting as Captain America alongside Steve Rogers in the same role, similar to during this Nick Spencer run. One of these returns to the Falcon mantle was covered in the April 2021 Edo Comic Cast, which looked at the 2020 Falcon and Winter Soldier miniseries. In 2015, Sam had a small Marvel Infinite comic exclusive to the Marvel Unlimited app called All New Captain America Fear Him. As of 2024, Sam is wearing the Captain America suit again in a 5-issue Sam Wilson Captain America miniseries by Greg Pak and Evan Narcisse, which also features Red Hulk and Isaiah Bradley, an early test subject product of the United States Super Soldier program, retconned into the Captain America mythology during the 2006 Truth, Red, White, and Black comic miniseries written by Robert Gonzalez and Carl Baker, which explored the inherent politics of wrapping a black man in red, white, and blue in the larger metaphor of America itself. Robert Morales originally laughed at the idea of writing an African-American Captain America, but then he wrote a story proposal so staggeringly depressive, he was certain Marvel would turn it down, except they didn't. The Isaiah Bradley story set a precedent for how Sam Wilson's tenure as Captain America would be tackled both in comics and on screen. Isaiah Bradley has been portrayed in the MCU by Carl Lumley, known for his roles as the voice of Martian Manhunter in the Bruce Timm Justice League cartoons, as well as characters in the live-action Supergirl, Mantis, and Alias TV shows. In Rick Remender's 2015 All-New Captain America run, John Falsworth, aka Baron Blood, bit Redwing, who survived but now has vaguely defined vampiric undead qualities. Sam also led the all-new, all-different Avengers team, which also consisted of the Jane Foster Thor, Kamala Khan Ms. Marvel, Miles Morales Spider-Man, Nova, Vision, and Iron Man. In the book, he kissed Jane Foster, but this plotline is just abruptly dropped. Sam Wilson has also appeared in an array of animated projects, typically seen as the Falcon, in projects released up till 2020, most notably voiced by The Expanse's Martin Roach in Avengers United They Stand, the late Lance Reddick of Destiny, Quantum Break, and Horizon video game fame in the Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon, and in the Superhero Squad show was voiced by Alimi Ballard, most famously known as the FBI agent David Sinclair on the 2005 CBS police procedural series Numbers, as well as the Quizmaster from the 90s Sabrina the Teenage Witch TV show. In animated projects released after 2020, like Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur and the Lego movies, Sam Wilson has primarily appeared as Captain America. In my opinion, the Sam Wilson comics, where he takes on the mantle of Captain America, are the most interesting and nuanced exploration of the Sam Wilson and Captain America mantles in the last 30 years of comic books. The history of Misty Knight. Misty Knight first appeared in 1975's Marvel Premiere Comics and is credited as Marvel's first black female superhero. Misty Knight is a former NYPD police officer whose arm was amputated following a bomb attack. After receiving a bionic prosthetic from Tony Stark, she started a private investigation agency called Nightwing Restorations Ltd. with close friend Colleen Wing, a woman descended from a family of samurai, a trained Japanese martial artist, and proficient sword wielder. After first being shown as friends in the Deadly Hands of Kung Fu comic, the two would later form the crime-fighting duo Daughters of the Dragon. As private investigators, Misty Knight and Colleen Wing frequently worked with Heroes for Hire duo Luke Cage, aka Power Man, and the Danny Rand Iron Fist. Misty Knight is often seen in a romantic relationship with the latter. Iron Fist and Misty Knight apparently had the first interracial kiss between superheroes in mainstream comics in 1977. Sadly, Misty and Colleen have most frequently been treated as supporting cast to Power Man and Iron Fist, though they did get a limited series called Daughter of the Dragon in late 2005, and in 2018, the latter initially a digital-only release by Jed McKay and Travel Foreman that later got a collected physical trade paperback release. Misty is highly educated with a degree in criminology. Her original arm made of steel would undergo a multitude of upgrades over the years to be primarily made of adamantium, being equipped with the ability to make concussive blasts and generate anti-gravity repulsor fields. Misty Knight is also the co-leader of the Valkyrie and Fearless Defenders with Valkyrie. In the 2010s, Misty reformed Heroes for Hire, taking over from Power Man and Iron Fist and basing herself as Control, and utilizing various street-level heroes in exchange for money and information. Tamara Mowry of Sister Sister fame portrayed Misty Knight in the Superhero Squad show, and Simone Missick portrayed Misty Knight in the Netflix Marvel shows, primarily fighting Serpent-themed supervillains as a romantic interest for Luke Cage. The history of Dennis Dunphy, aka D-Man or Demolition Man. Dennis Dunphy, also known as Demolition Man, initially a wrestler turned superhero with enhanced strength and durability, draws inspiration from Captain America as he battles villains and confronts his personal struggles and self-doubt. A former college football player, he dreamed of becoming a professional athlete but faced rejection from professional teams. Seeking an edge and going by the wrestling name Demolition Dunphy, he underwent a process by the power broker to augment his physical strength. However, he soon found himself unable to compete safely in regular sports. Unbeknownst to Dunphy, Power Broker Inc. was a criminal organization. He was coerced into capturing his friends, The Thing and Sharon Ventura, who's gone by the codenames Ms. Marvel and She-Thing, but ultimately broke free from their control, despite the harrowing withdrawal from Power Broker Inc.'s addictive pills. Dunphy allied himself with Steve Rogers in exposing Power Broker Inc. and later joined forces with Steve during his The Captain era as an ally. Despite facing challenges and self-doubt, he played a significant role in missions against various villains. Dunphy joined the Avengers on an informal basis and took part in various missions. He faced personal struggles, including battling schizophrenia after an extended duration of mental instability, which escalates to him being rendered unhoused. He's also mind-controlled to be evil under the codename Scourge, bonded and was assimilated by a symbiote, died a couple times and was resurrected and participated in events like the superhero-centric Civil War. At one point, Lockjaw, the Inhumans' teleporting dog, recruits D-Man as a sidekick during Lockjaw's 2018 solo series. During that series, D-Man's romantic life is explored for the first time with the reveal of a boyfriend in the picture. For a time, Dennis ran a support group for trans kids with superpowers called Supertrans, though they eventually had to disband for safety reasons due to growing anti-mutant sentiments. D-Man has most lately been seen as a security officer at the rebuilt Ravencroft Institute for the Criminally Insane, which served as the grounds for some warped horror. In the MCU, if you're paying attention to name tags on US military soldiers in the Captain America movies, you may see the last name Dunphy sprawled across the chest of one such member. D-Man's profile was raised in one of my personal top 5 favorite movies of 2024, LEGO Avengers Mission Demolition, where a version of the Dennis Dunphy character is voiced by one Will Friedle, also known as the voice of Kim Possible's Ron Stoppable, Batman Beyond's titular Terry McGinnis, the Disney Guardians cartoons Star-Lord, and Eric in the live-action Girl and Boy Meets World franchise. D-Man's most iconic outfit was cobbled together on the fly from spare copies of a Wolverine costume and an old copy of Daredevil's first comic book suit before Daredevil developed a strong association with the color red. Sam Wilson, Captain America 2015, Issue 1. We run into these issues with a level of assumed knowledge that I will briefly run through some very bare basics. Hydra are baddies in the Marvel Universe. They're a global terrorist organization founded in fanatical worship to an inhuman called Hive, but warped over time to have strong Nazi ties. S.H.I.E.L.D. are meant to be the goodies, a fictional espionage, special law enforcement and counter-terrorism government agency. The acronym originally stood for Supreme Headquarters International Espionage and Law Enforcement Division. It was changed in 1991 to Strategic Hazard Intervention Espionage Logistics Directorate. In the MCU, S.H.I.E.L.D. stands for Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division. Don't ask me to repeat any of those off the top of my head, please. Having previously been run by director Nick Fury Sr., who resembles David Hasselhoff in appearance, and director Nick Fury Jr., who resembles Samuel L. Jackson in appearance, the current director at this point of time of the comics is Maria Hill, Fury's former right hand, portrayed by Kobe Smulders in the MCU. In the past, Sam, as Captain America, is flying around a helicarrier, evading Hydra forces, while Misty Knight protects an innocent scientist from their grasp. Dennis Dunphy is also helping Cap by trying to hijack the aircraft and landing. Cap is caught off guard by Crossbones, Hydra's muscle in the operation Wilson is trying to thwart. Brock Rumlow is a longtime supervillain called Crossbones, first introduced in 1989's Captain America issue 359, created by Mark Gruenwald and Kieran Dwyer, and was an enduring adversary for Steve Rogers, frequently employed as a mercenary by other villains like Red Skull and Hydra. A black and white skull mask and an insignia on Crossbones' chest, symbolic of his namesake, serve as Crossbones' visual motif, though the MCU version seen in the second and third Captain America movies as well as Avengers Endgame only adopted a pale imitation of this aesthetic. He's said to be an expert combatant and marksman, military tactician with enhanced strength, stamina, durability, and reflexes, though it's unspecified where those enhancements originated from. In a 2010 Thunderbolts issue, Crossbones got exposed to Terrigen Mist, temporarily gaining energy blast powers, but the ability was short-lived. Personally, I've always thought of Crossbones as Captain America's equivalent to Batman's Bane, if he never got the green venom serum and was a little less intelligent. The scientist Sam is trying to rescue is a SHIELD top scientist who has been lured to an officially decommissioned helicarrier by Hydra, with numerous soldiers posing as SHIELD agents to trick the scientist into working for Hydra unsuspectingly. Cap and Crossbones proceed to fight one-on-one. Back in the present, Sam's co-passengers pester him with questions, and the flight attendant displays racist micro and macroaggressions towards Sam. In the aftermath of Cap's fight on board the helicarrier, he brings Crossbones handcuffed to the feet of director Maria Hill, informing her that it would appear SHIELD is completely Hydra-free for once, as they're having problems rebuilding their ranks. Director Hill treats Sam ambivalently, as he no longer works for SHIELD or the government. Sam recalls his past as the partner of the previous Captain America, Steve Rogers, and how he wanted to simply follow his footsteps after succeeding him. However, he feels the United States of America are divided as it's ever been. People in opposite ideologies are more aggressive towards each other, inequality is soaring, and certain good agencies are each day more morally dubious. And the part that scares Sam the most is that he too has a political side, opinions and beliefs. While Steve didn't get involved in politics if it wasn't necessary, Sam decided that Captain America needed to be more than a symbol, and that he should step into the fray and make the change happen. However, his announcement brought Sam away from criticism and detractors, transforming Captain America into a politically dividing figure. In order to work closely with the ordinary American citizens, he established a hotline. Most of the calls were for trivial matters, except one which caught Sam's attention, a Mexican immigrant called Mariana Torres, whose grandson disappeared. Her grandson, Joaquin, was a good Samaritan accused of being a coyote for leaving supplies in the Saharan desert for immigrants. The local authorities suspected he had died or gotten lost in the desert, but Mariana believed he had been kidnapped by the Sons of the Serpent, a racist group that have existed in various iterations since 1966's Avengers comics. Not having the funds to charter a jet to Arizona, Sam sought assistance from his brother pastor Gideon Wilson, who would fund a commercial flight for Sam, but Gideon didn't want to be involved beyond that. Gideon is most famously known for in Marvel Comics via his son Jim, who was the young man that Bruce Banner's Hulk visited on his deathbed, who died from AIDS in the famous AIDS awareness issue of the Incredible Hulk issue 420, written in 1994 at the height of the AIDS epidemic, to spread awareness destigmatizing AIDS as an illness exclusive to the homosexual community, but as a threat to everyone that can be transmitted by other means. For some reason, in the 2007 World War Hulk Gamma Corps, Pastor Wilson underwent exposure to gamma radiation, bizarrely blaming the Hulk for his son's death and vowing revenge on him. He ended up admitting he only attacked the Hulk because he was ashamed of his own failings as a father. By the time he reappeared in all-new Captain America, established as being related to Sam Wilson, the gamma radiation exposure looks to have been temporary and worn off, leaving the pastor powerless. A group of immigrants experiencing sunstroke find Walter Joaquin left behind before being stopped by the Son of the Serpents, who try to force the group to come with them or die. Captain America locates and confronts them with the Supreme Serpent, pointing out that he and the Avengers are also vigilantes. Sam says that he will have to learn to live with that, and fights them off with the help of Redwing. After dealing with them, a SHIELD jet descends and Commander Steve Rogers emerges, ordering Sam to stand down. Sam Wilson, Captain America, 2015, Issue 2. After his encounter with Steve, the public believed that Captain America's predecessor arrested him, and on a plane, some even asked him about it. 6 months earlier, both Captain Americas condemned SHIELD's Project Kobik. After encountering his predecessor, the two fought the Sons of the Serpent before Sam left to track the Supreme Serpent. He fought Armadillo, a villain who we've previously encountered in the comic club, in Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man Hunted arc, who became a villain again after realizing that Sam lied to Armadillo about helping Armadillo make a better life. Then Cap learned about a lab in New York, and from a hacktivist going by the codename The Whisperer, that it was owned by Carl Malice. Carl Malice has been an evil scientist since 1980's Spider-Woman comics, starring Jessica Drew, and has also been a pain in the butt for Steve Rogers, D-Man, Iron Man, Luke Cage, the Thunderbolts, and The Thing. Meanwhile, The Whisperer is Rick Jones, a longtime sidekick of many superheroes, including Captain America when Steve was in the latter part of the 20th century, Bruce Banner's Hulk, and the original male Captain Marvel. We're not really going to touch Rick Jones just for time, but let's just say entire Wikipedia articles have been written about Marvel's version of Jimmy Olsen, if Jimmy swapped which superhero he worshipped every few years, and accidentally sometimes got powers, or periodically banished to the negative zone because of banging cosmic jewelry. Meanwhile, Sam leaves the plane, flying away with Redwing, raising serious questions regarding how Sam didn't depressurize the plane while exiting it. Trivia: Zemo's Hydra High Sect is incorrectly identified as the Masters of Evil by Sam in his inner monologue. There are different supervillain groups periodically led by Zemo over the years, but the Masters of Evil had less Nazi ties and usually more evil Asgardians. Sam Wilson, Captain America 2015, Issue 3. Misty entered a warehouse to provide Captain America with reinforcements and is shocked to find out that Sam was turned into CapWolf. This is an homage to a six-part Steve Rogers story called Man and Wolf, starting with 1992's Captain America issue 402, in which Steve is turned into a werewolf by a villain called Nightshade. During the arc, he becomes part of a pack of superheroes with wolf-like powers, including the Werewolf by Midnight, Jack Russell, New Mutant and X-Factor member Wolfsbane, Jonah Jameson's astronaut son, John Jameson, who's had recurring stints as a man-wolf following a trip to the moon, and Wolverine, though this continues to highlight writers not knowing what an actual Wolverine is. Hint, it's not a wolf. In fact, wolves often naturally predate on wolverines. Additionally, fun fact, not Sam Wilson's first time as a wolf either. In 1973's Captain America issue 164, Nightshade shot Sam with a werewolf serum, turning Sam into Falcon Wolf. Anyway, earlier, Captain America fought Carl Malice after learning that the Sons of the Serpents was a front for his genetic experiments. Malice defeated him with his symbiote powers, and he later woke up as a werewolf. Using his psychic bond with Redwing, who Malice took, Captain America tracked both of them down and used Redwing's new sonic cannon to exploit Malice's weakness to loud sounds, defeating him. Then Cap found Redwing in a chamber with a mutated Joaquin Torres before contacting his grandmother, Mariana, and confirming his safety. Then the Whisperer contacted Cap and told him that the cosmetics industry was Malice's employer. Meanwhile, Serpent Solutions told several men in a meeting room to let them worry about Captain America after suspecting that he would be onto them. Misty briefly referenced the films Teen Wolf, probably the Michael J. Fox version, and also Werewolf in London during this issue. Serpent Solutions requires me to briefly touch on the next homage to Steve Rogers' old Captain America comics with the latest iteration of Serpent Society. The Serpent Society, which has been around in various iterations since 1985, superseding the Serpent Squad, which has been around since 1973, are a sprawling roster of snake-themed villains and mercenaries for hire, several of whom you may have seen in the previous amazing Spider-Man Hunted comic club we did. Some of the most frequent leaders of the Serpent Society have been King Cobra, Sidewinder, and Viper, with a giant asterisk to the last one that I'll explain in a second, Diamondback in the pink, Constrictor in the orange and blue with silver coils out the wrists, and Cottonmouth in the purple and orange, and the big muscly blonde lady, aka Anaconda, are some of the most prominent recurring hench snakes in the Serpent Society. The asterisk next to Viper is because if the Serpent Society is known for one thing, it's leadership squabbles and infighting. The Viper we see in these issues is the first Viper, Jordan Strike, who is actually the brother of the original Eel, a 20th century villain that fought nearly every superhero around. One night while being transported, this is back in the 80s comics, Viper was attacked by Madame Hydra, a former leader in the subversive organization Hydra. For visual aid, lady in the group photo in the portraits on the right side with the green hair. Madame Hydra killed Viper's escort, then told Viper that she intended to wage a terrorist campaign against society under the name of Viper. Realizing she planned to kill him, Jordan desperately suggested that he change his own alias, but to no avail. Madame Hydra shot the Viper dead and then stripped the corpse of his costume. From then on, it was Madame Hydra who has been known as the Viper typically. The original Viper, Jordan, has somehow returned to life prior to the start of the series, but I don't believe an explanation has ever been given in comic for the exact reason how. Sam Wilson, Captain America 2015, Issue 4. Having been transformed by the evil scientist Dr. Malice into a flying lycanthrope last issue, Sam Wilson is slowly adapting to his new form with only a few rage issues, some howling at the moon, and the occasional rummage through trash cans. Meanwhile, Dr. Claire Temple told Captain America that his condition would regress, but Joaquin's wouldn't because of the vampiric DNA Redwing has, which was used while Joaquin was experimented upon. Claire Temple was portrayed by Rosario Dawson in the Netflix Marvel shows as the nurse who is the connective tissue across the four main solo Netflix shows and the group team-up. In the comics, Claire, who's been in comics since the 70s, is a doctor who was married to Bill Foster, aka Goliath, had a relationship with Luke Cage, and now pops up as a doctor for various superheroes, including the Peter Parker Spider-Man. Meanwhile, the Serpent Society have reinvented themselves as an evil corporate think tank called Serpent Solutions and have hit Wall Street with a plan to control America where it matters, the executive boardroom. Sam consults with former member of the team and former Steve Rogers flame Diamondback to find out exactly what the Serpentine gang is planning. Diamondback. Rachel, aka the second Diamondback, first introduced in Mark Gruenwald's Captain America issue 310 in 1985, is a former member of the Serpent Society who, in addition to throwing diamonds that can be acid-laced, poison-laced, or explosive-laced, and general street fighting street-level fighting skills and wearing pink and black outfits paired with pink hair, iconically betrayed the Serpent Society and joined forces with Steve Rogers' Captain America. Diamondback is a complicated character who I want to enjoy reading stories of. But there's a history of inherent misogyny in how she's often been written by male writers, and early appearances reduced to a love interest for Steve Rogers with no motivations of her own outside of Steve. One of the most sexist lines I've ever seen in the thought bubble was written for her, where she thinks, "All it would take is the love of a good, honest man like you," referencing Steve Rogers, "and I could be a good person." Pure male wish fulfillment mixed with savior complex that shows why women need to be present at all levels of comic book publishing and production, if only to keep crud like that line from ever seeing the light of day. Worth noting that they'd later write into her backstory that she'd been sexually assaulted at the age of 15 by Crossbones, who we saw in issue 1. And Crossbones also killed 2 of her brothers, and then her third and final brother, having a mental break, ends up getting shot in a grocery store soon after one of the murders. And while the tragic story they spin for Diamondback for why she slides into exotic dancing and supervillainy is a powerful one standalone, in the larger context of this character's history, it feels like a backslide for the character's long-term progression. Doesn't mean there isn't interesting characterization in a female character in a male-dominated Serpent group escaping a life of villainy in those original Captain America issues, or in this series as somebody who's preyed upon and tempted into old habits when they hit a low point following loss, just that a female character doesn't need to be deep-soaked in trauma and defined by who they date in order to be interesting. One very short B story during that era, starting in Captain America issue 385, saw Rachel Layton, along with Black Mamba and Asp, form Bad Girls Inc., a trio of adventurers who would on occasion aid Captain America. During the Civil War storyline, Bad Girls Inc. sided with Captain America's anti-registration group. Thankfully, Rachel got a female to write her after this Captain America run. In the 12-issue 2018 Domino series written by Gail Simone and the 2019 Domino Hot Shots 5-issue miniseries with the same writer, Diamondback is seen working with her new close mutant friends, Domino and Outlaw, as mercenaries. Rachel repositioned from being a continual damsel in distress down on her luck to instead be a successful mercenary whose greatest ability is that of female friendship. Diamondback gets to be a little snooty, but tough and comedically quippy, while still retaining the bleeding heart and toughness that defines her character, and fiercely loyal to those around her that treat her with respect and love, feeling a lot more empowering when surrounded by female characters. Diamondback was meant to appear in Captain America Brave New World, portrayed by the actor who also portrayed the titular Alita Battle Angel in 2019, Rosa Salazar, before her scenes were cut from Brave New World. Unfortunately, Sam's meeting with Diamondback turns into a setup. Black Racer, Cottonmouth, and Copperhead ambush them, and Diamondback stabs Sam. Sam is captured and taken to a boardroom which contains most of the past members of the Serpent Squad. Sam Wilson, Captain America 2015, Issue 5. In the past, Frank Payne, aka the Constrictor, decided to retire from his criminal life and live peacefully with Diamondback, who had become his fiancée. However, Frank fell victim to a terminal and most likely pulmonary illness that was only diagnosed at a late stage. He couldn't receive the proper treatment because he didn't have insurance, and after Frank died, Diamondback became a pole dancer to make money to pay for the medical treatment bills. Viper recruited Rachel from the club into Serpent Solutions. The Constrictor suit would be taken up by Frank's son from a prior relationship in future Captain America issues and future Marvel Comics. In the present, Viper explains his motives to Captain America before throwing him out of a high-rise office window while Misty was fighting Viper's men on the ground floor. Joaquin, who was handcuffed to a hospital bed and accompanied by Demolition Man, sensing what was happening to Cap as a result of both Red Wing's connection to Sam Wilson, thanks to have been previously experimented on, and Joaquin's new powers, broke free and flew away, catching Sam, who was still CapWolf, while strapped to a falling office chair before Sam could splat on the ground. Joaquin attempts to fly away with Cap, but Serpent Solutions surrounds them, while Misty, having infiltrated Serpent Solutions headquarters, continues to take on numerous members up above alone. When Nick Spencer was asked in a Comic Book Resources interview, what's it like writing Sam Wilson as Captain America? What do you find most interesting about him? Nick responded, Sam is really fun to write. He's a funny, cool, likable guy. His voice came really easy to me. I had written him a bit before in Avengers World, and I liked his voice then, so I had a good feeling about it. He's not a lovable loser type like Scott Lang, but he's very funny in his own way. He's an everyman, the type of guy you want to follow around. He's a character that suits the mantle of Captain America really well. I'm really enjoying the chance to get inside his head and spend some time with him. Personally, while I, Joshi, enjoyed CapWolf, I think he should have reverted back while he was unconscious, because he spends 2/3 of this trade as a wolf. And when you aren't even in the double digits of Captain America issues, where the mantle is being portrayed by a black man, and Marvel has a whole infamy thanks to the Black Panther mask that they'll never live down, it's maybe not the best visual choice to pull for so many issues. On the bright side, they balanced it out by having Sam's non-wolf form on all of the covers during this arc. Sam Wilson, Captain America 2015, Issue 6. Sam, still paralyzed by toxin as CapWolf, uses the shared bond he has with Joaquin through Red Wing to project visuals of what fighting moves Sam would do with wings into Joaquin's mind so he can take on the Serpent solutions. Meanwhile, news commentators compare the battle to the economy, saying it's representative of big government stifling successful private business, and that it doesn't matter if they have a villainous past if they're making corporate profits good for the economy. The trickle-down economics is worth it, and that the government should be supporting these job creators, not overtaxing them, over-regulating them, or punching them in the jaw. As pure poppycock. As the Serpents look to take down Joaquin, a frenzy on the stock market starts as people begin buying stocks of businesses in connection to Serpent solutions. Joaquin has a healing factor and gets back up, and Rachel, aka Diamondback, decides to re-side with the good guys, seconds before Misty Knight joins their ranks, shortly joined by D-Man crashing into the battle with a dune buggy while blasting Creedence Clearwater's revivals up around the bend at full blast. The battle, turning in favor of the heroes, sees a stock market crash as people go into a selling frenzy. Sam as CapWolf then confronts the business people for thinking they're better than everybody else, and convinced it's acceptable to do anything to increase bottom lines, buying enough politicians and media types to normalize their actions. Sam talks about how Steve would have given a speech about what makes America great, not chasing dollars or hoarding wealth. But Sam would rather just arrest them, using the Whisperer's help to hack evidence. They point out if they're all arrested, the economy would go into a freefall, which would cause layoffs and economic distress for everyday people. So he just arrests the ringleader and tells the others to buy and maintain the arrested guy's wealth. The press decides to run the sensationalist story instead of Cap meeting with Diamondback, a known exotic dancer. Diamondback disappears to pop up in the great 2018 Domino comics. Sam reverts back to a normal man out of his CapWolf state, and Red Wing has a full bill of health, but lands on the arm of the new Falcon, Joaquin Torres. When Nick Spencer was asked in a Daily Beast interview what his vision for Sam Wilson, Captain America going forward, and what other themes he hopes to address, Nick responded, "I just hope we tell an entertaining story. It's been an amazing thing seeing people talking like this about a comic I was part of, and I love the conversation, but at the end of the day, I don't want people picking the book up and expecting a political screed or avoiding it for the same reason. People with differing values or zero interest in politics still watched The West Wing, right? Because it was a good story with characters you cared about and conflicts you were invested in. That's my top priority." Personally, I, Joshi, liked that in issue 6 everybody got a moment to shine on the good guy's side. General discussion. Personally, besides just feeling this is the most interesting storytelling they've done with Sam Wilson ever by giving him the Captain America mantle, and I love the ideas that can be explored through the character that they can't with Steve, the eras they're homaging in this run of comics with the Serpent Society is the era of Captain America comics I was picking out of dollar bins as a kid and reading. Diamondback and D-Man I recognized instantly. I love the Serpent Society for the absurdity of having a snake suit to get recruited to a group. I love the ludicrousness of CapWolf. I recall reading the original CapWolf run. Nick Spencer has said in interviews he wanted to reconnect with the Steve Englehart and Mark Ruhenwald eras because that's the Cap he grew up with too. Jade's thoughts. Jade's initial thoughts were, "This was a wild read, and they'll need to reflect on what the flamingos Jade just witnessed." Jade hasn't seen the Captain America Brave New World movie yet, and wonders if this comic inspired it. Like, do the villains who look like Snake Men stepping out of the Masters of the Universe appear in the movie? Regarding favourite covers, Jade thought there were quite a few striking ones. The number 1 hip-hop variant by Mahmoud Azra reflects the pessimist mood permeating the first issue. The issue 2 variant by Doc Shaner has a clever shield/target motif. Jade's collected thoughts the next day were, "This was an unexpectedly entertaining read. Once again, Edo Comic Book Club has picked a title Jade would not have otherwise picked up. Jade was set for a doom and gloom society is failing us story, and what Jade got was a society is failing us Halloween special, with Snake Men special guests. The line art and colouring tend to lean into the doom and gloom vibe, but the quips in the script and some art details do their best to counteract that. Although Jade probably won't pick up the next volume, Jade looks forward to watching the new movie with their eyebrows furrowed in confusion, trying to work out what, if anything, was inspired by this comic. Jade gives this comic 3.5 Red Wings out of 5. Ammo Glitter Slide. Ammo Glitter's thoughts were, Ammo liked the overall premise of what if Captain America was broke and didn't have the backing of S.H.I.E.L.D. and the US government, or Tony Stark. It felt like a fresh way to tell a Captain America story. Ammo liked Misty and Dennis, particularly wished Dennis had got more of a look in. The symbiote body horror stuff with Malice was fun. Ammo wished they'd leaned a bit harder into the horror though. As soon as Ammo saw Red Wing had been upgraded with a sonic cannon, Ammo was like, they're gonna have a fight with a symbiote, aren't they? Ammo's favourite part of the book overall was the flashback with Rachel at the start of issue 5, showing how Rachel fell back into villainy. The book was way better when it was showing the problems with modern America rather than just having Viper endlessly speechify at the reader about it. Some really excellent panel layouts. Ammo particularly liked the double-page spread in issue 6 that forms the shape of Cap's shield. And why do they call him CapWolf and not Werecap? Ammo found all the Secret Society members hateable except for Rachel. Ammo's favourite page was the absolutely glorious 2-page spread of Demolition Man kicking Serpent butt. And Ammo's favourite cover was the Oscar Jimenez cover for issue 6, which has some really beautiful line work and colouring, and they liked that it showed regular Cap fighting the Serpent Society rather than CapWolf as it is in the story. The overall rating Ammo gives is 3 Steve Rogers getting pooped on out of 5. Would have been higher if there was less speechifying. If you liked reading this, if you want to read more Sam Wilson, I strongly suggest continuing to read the subsequent volumes of Sam Wilson Captain America by Nick Spencer, where Nick explores both sides of an ideological rift between Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers. Alternatively, go back and give Remender's all-new Captain America a try to see Sam fight Hydra and a vampire. Also a reminder that there is a 2025 miniseries releasing new issues at the moment. If you want to read more Diamondback, my go-to is the 2018 Domino series, followed by the 2019 Domino Hotshots miniseries. The 17 issues plus the occasional annual show that Gail Simone has experience writing groups of women, thanks to both Birds of Prey and Batgirl, and it's the strongest writing Diamondback has ever gotten, without having to indenture her to a man or make her suffer needlessly. If you want to read more D-Man, try Captain America issues 328 through 342. I do also want to check out that 2018 Lockjaw series now. If you want to read more Serpent Society, read the Marvel Epic Collection Captain America Society of Serpents, which collects Captain America 1968 issues 302 through 317, which includes Diamondback's first appearance in issue 310, but her arc expands throughout much of the next 80 to 100 issues. If you want to read Steve Rogers' Manwolf story or CapWolf story, check out Captain America issues 402 through 407. If you want more Misty Knight, try the Heroes for Hire comics, where she's leading the team. Sam Wilson even pops up in the Control trade paperback as well as Falcon. What comics has Joshy been reading besides the comic book club books? Not a lot of reading because of the short turnaround between comic clubs this month, but I finished Absolute Power, which fills in the gap between Dreamer's Adventures and Suicide Squad Dream Team, and Nicole Mains's Secret Six, as well as the gap between John and Jay's 6-issue miniseries Adventures of Superman and the Secret Six series. All 3 characters are really put through the proverbial ringer and take some real physical and emotional damage. I've slowly been reading some of the 2005 Young Avengers series that first introduced those characters. Kind of wild seeing Billy referred to as Asgardian and not as Wiccan. Also strange to see how tangentially involved Jessica Jones is in those early stories. I've been reading The Question All Along the Watchtower, all about the Renee Montoya version of The Question, investigating a growing dark mystery aboard the Justice League's new Watchtower, made more complicated when her ex-Batwoman is the most obvious suspect for a murder aboard the station. I've been reading more of the new Ultimate Spider-Man comic, and I read Toxic Summer, an Oni Press publication written and drawn by Derek Charm, who has done artwork for The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl radio show, Archie Meets Batman 66, a 2022 John Pride variant cover for Action Comics issue 1044, and worked on the regular show comic series among other comics for other Cartoon Network and Disney properties. Toxic Summer is a 3-issue series about 2 boys that sign up to be lifeguards for the summer in a seaside town in order to be where all the slutty, hot, shirtless college guys are. But when they rock up, they discover a toxic spill off the coast has turned the water a slimy green, and instead of being lifeguards, they've signed their entire summer up to cleaning the beach and removing fish corpses. Thankfully, there's a cute guy called AJ who frequents the local diner, and mysterious, zoned-out people with glowing green eyes around town to break up the tedium. It's a 3-issue series, no plans at this stage for a sequel, but I hope that changes because I genuinely loved the story.